Live from multiple locations via the miracle of Skype, it's the LTN Hour. Let's talk NASCAR with your host, Todd Bailing. Featuring dangerous Dan Margetta and Brian Schmidt. LTN is a caller-driven program, and your participation is encouraged by calling 414-421-7901. That's 414-421-7901. Now, the creator and host of the fastest hour in radio, Todd Bailing.
Anybody stay up and watch Formula One racing from Las Vegas last night? Hello there, everyone. Todd Bailing in Phoenix, Arizona. Joined by my three partners, none of which went to Las Vegas last night, starting with Dan Margetta of St. Francis, Wisconsin. But I'll bet you watched it.
I did watch it. I wanted to be there. We tried, but they kind of priced it out of our price range pretty early, and knew we weren't going to be there.
And
but
yet,
actually, it was a pretty decent race for a Formula One race. I thought it was pretty one of the more interesting ones that I've seen in a while because we had lead changes.
Prices changed late in the going. Brian Schmidt of Utzberg, Wisconsin. Hi, Brian.
Hi. I did not stay up. I watched all the pre-race. I saw the lights go out, watched a couple laps, and then I fell asleep.
That's how much I watched when I got up this morning.
But I did watch the whole thing this morning after I got up. I went through it and watched the rest of it. And yes, it was. For Formula One, that was one of the better races they've had. There was actually passes for the lead, which oftentimes in Formula One doesn't happen. So I would say that the cool temperatures and the fact that their tires weren't working real well actually made it a good race.
How about that? PJ Noodleman of Trempealeau, Wisconsin, out on the left coast of the state. Hi.
Hi there. I did not watch it either, but I look forward to hearing all of the reports other than the manhole. Well, actually, the manhole stuff is really
what the hell happened there? We realize that they're racing on city streets, but, apparently when you go over manhole covers at 200 miles an hour, it's kind of bad.
Well, first of all, it wasn't a manhole cover. It was if you look in your city street, you see the big ones are the manhole covers, which is called a manhole because you actually can fit through it. Then you have the real small ones, which are water valves, which is the valve that goes down to the street. So if a water main breaks, you can shut the water off at different spots. That's what he did. He literally sucked one of those right out of the ground. When they repave the street, you put new ones in. And usually when you pave around it with blacktop, the blacktop holds it in there. But these cars create such a vacuum because they're going 200 and almost 220 miles an hour down the strip.
Jeez.
Wow.
Utilities aren't designed for vehicles to be going that fast. And then to have that kind of a suction, it literally, they welded all the covers down, which is what you generally do at a street race, no matter who it is. They did it in Chicago or IndyCar or wherever. He sucked not only the cover, but the whole frame around it right out of the blacktop.
My
sucked
gosh.
it right out. So their solution to that was, and what took 5 hours was, that's a 3.8 mile circuit, I believe. That's almost the size of Road America, if you think about how big that track was. They went around, they plucked them all out, and they put blacktop over top of them. And you're going to say, well, how does that work? You don't know where that is. Well, it's common practice in construction now is when you pave it, you pave the road, and you GPS where every one of those are. It's like a satellite system. You set it on the ground. They did it in front of my house this year. And they pave right over it, and then now probably today they'll go around and they'll cut that stuff back out and put the valves back in so that when they do have issues there, they can. But
so
why
they
didn't
did that
do that
in the wee hours of the morning?
Yeah, 5 hours. That's about probably what it would take to do that.
Wow.
From the time that happened to the time they got back on track was a little over 5 hours. So they went around.
City union workers had to love getting that call at about midnight.
I'm sure they did. I'm sure the FIA paid for the whole thing. But, it's something you probably don't expect to have happen because, as we said, those cars, the vacuum that it creates is just incredible. And those roads aren't designed to have that type of force on it. So
I didn't realize a couple of numbers that they threw around. First of all, that those cars are $15 million a piece. Are you kidding me?
Oh, yes.
And then when he went over there and sucked that thing off the road, it cost $2 million worth of damage to the car.
Those are, it's not like any other real form of racing. It's not where you have a multiples of these things. That is the piece they have. There isn't a backup car. There isn't. It's a lot like, similar. I guess the closest thing you could compare it to is like IMSA road racing. Those guys don't have backup cars either. Those cars are the piece they put together, and they work so much on those cars, and there's so much tweaking and massaging. If you watched part of that when that happened, when they were towing it back, they're like blocking it off so nobody can see because Formula One is so so many secrets and so many different things they're doing, and obviously Red Bull is way ahead of everybody else right now, and they let that stuff happen, and that's where the technology comes in. That's why they don't want more teams involved in it either. There's only 20 teams because the pot of money that is available there is just distributed amongst those 20 teams. That's why it's so hard. Michael Andretti wants to bring a team in there, and I listened to one of the press conferences that they had over the weekend, and they talked about bringing it in, and the other four principals that were in that were talking about how, well, only if the money is right. We got to look out after ourselves first. These guys run very tight thresholds on their budgets, but their budgets are so much bigger than everybody else's. It's incredible. I mean, think about it now. This whole thing is going to pack up and go to Abu Dhabi, and by this time next week, they're going to have a race completed in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, and probably
and the Cup guys complain about going coast to coast. These guys literally got to pack all their stuff up and fly it over into the war zone for.
But what a show Vegas put on, though! My God, that was spectacular. We all kind of knew this right from the beginning. As long as you're not doing it in a parking lot of the Caesar's Palace, you're using the Strip. It's going around that new sphere. Oh my God, what a show it was! Which, of course, is what Max Verstappen was bitching about. Yeah, it's 1% sporting event and it's 99% show. Well, hello, it's Vegas. I mean, what do you expect?
I get his point, though, and I think that goes across all forms of sports. and I think the point he hit at, and something people got to think about is, what I know it's a show business, and we want to put on a show, but I think a lot of these sports, NASCAR included, is losing that part of get these people to understand actually what's happening. Don't just bring them there to wine and dine them, and so that they can have something to do, and they don't even pay attention to going on, what's going on the track. Get people to understand what's going on with the series. And I think that's his biggest gripe. And I agree with him a lot. Dan, I mean, you agree too. You and I say that a lot. There's a lot of people that wander around in the garage area, don't have a clue what the hell's going on.
Yeah, you see it everywhere a lot of times. And they kind of forgot about the race fans, really, on this deal. I mean, they kind of priced them out early on. The tickets went down as it got closer. But, I mean, people like you and I would have been there if the price would have been reasonable just because we're race fans in that way. And they put up screens. They put up, tarps and stuff so you couldn't even see it if you were there on the Strip. And, I mean, people were riding the escalators up and down constantly just to get a glimpse of the race.
That's what we would have been doing if we would have been there.
Advanced tickets is what you're talking about, because the closer it got to the event, they suddenly decided that, oh, my God, there's nobody coming to this race. Where those hotel rooms were, I think they were just ridiculously priced, like $2,500 a night, and you had to take 3 nights. Well, a friend of mine decided to drive to Vegas here from Phoenix on Friday morning and got 3 nights at the Link, which is within the racetrack, for $130 a night. Well, that's not bad. Now, you couldn't see the track, he said. That was the problem. So I suppose from your room, if you could catch a glimpse of it, I'm not sure. But to buy a ticket to the race was totally separate, and it was a couple of $100 for those tickets, which, you think about it. But I think that they scared people away from the beginning when they were talking about, oh, you can get $1 million package. You can bring some of your friends and get dinner out of the deal. Come on. No wonder people were afraid to try and go there. Room prices were ridiculous. The closer they got, the better it got. They ended up putting on quite a show. The fact that it was at night. What is the whole point of starting a race at midnight, by the way? Is it because of the world television market?
Well, it was that, but a lot of it was their agreement with the city of Las Vegas that the Strip had to be open between 4 a.m. and I believe like 6 or 7 p.m. That had to be open. So that was open every day for that time frame. And when the FIA and Liberty Media Group put this whole thing together, that was their plan, to not disturb it so much so regular business could take place. That's why there were no support classes or anything like that at this event. So the Strip, literally, you could watch the Formula One cars there that night, and the next day you could drive your vehicle down there the next day. And it happened all 3 days, every day. That's how it went.
It was quite an event. If you haven't seen it yet, I'm sure it will be repeated. It was on ESPN. After this break, we're going to go into our winter mode. What does that mean? Well, what we thought we would do here on the program is talk to people who have been in NASCAR for several years that had Milwaukee as part of the trip on their way to Charlotte. And we start with an old friend, Bobby Dotter, when we come back.
Touchdown, Romeo Dobbs! Sunday, the Packers return to Lambeau, playing host to the LA Chargers. Doug Russell is live with Packers Game Day at 8 a.m. Kickoff at noon on Milwaukee's home for the Packers. 97.3 The Game.
From racing engines to street engines, long blocks to turnkey packages, or complete custom engines, just ask and Wagner Automotive can fill your needs. All backed by many years of racing experience. These years of experience have provided reliability and performance that customers need to win races. Wagner's has been building championship-winning engines for top teams from NASCAR to short tracks in your backyard. This expertise has carried over to street engines they supply to top custom car builders. The Wagner Company, in the heart of Wisconsin, is outfitted with the state-of-the-art machinery necessary to design, manufacture, build, and test custom engines and their accessory parts. Dyno services are independently available for anyone needed to test their engine. Wagner's Company can also provide you or your company with production CNC machining or welding services. All your questions and requests are handled personally by Casey Wagner. Just give us a call at 920-394-3557 or visit our website at wagnerautomotive.com. Hey, Matthew, give me a hand with this tree.
Dad, let's get a real tree this year.
Hey, leave that fake tree in the box under the basement steps this year. Get a real tree from PMF Landscape on River Road in West Bend. Any kind of real tree imaginable, up to 18 feet. A huge assortment of Christmas decorations, including wreaths in 3 sizes, cemetery wreaths, festive global hanging ornaments, bows, garland roping, and more. Stop in 7 days a week during the holiday season, have refreshments, and check everything out. How about a PMF gift certificate? The perfect gift. PMF Landscape Supply, 5470 South River Road in West Bend. Call them, 262-338-8800.
Dad, our tree from PMF Landscape looks great.
This is Two Pros and a Cup of Joe.
Justin Fields had a hell of a first half, but yeah, the late turnovers, the fumble, the interception, I don't know what the plan is moving forward. Look, the good news is they've got the number 1 and number 2 pick in the draft next year as it stands right now.
Two Pros, LeVar Arrington, Brady Quinn, and a Cup of Joe, Jonas Knox.
Weekday mornings 5 to 8 on the Big 920 and your iHeartRadio app.
Welcome back to the program. This is a real treat for us because we haven't had, I'm sure that we've had Bobby Dotter on the program in the past, but it's been a while at the very least. Bobby, let's see. First of all, it's nice to have you on the program for the first time in I don't know how many years. Great to hear your voice again, Bob.
Well, I sure appreciate you looking me up and excited to talk to all my friends in Wisconsin.
There we go. And I want to start by how you actually ended up in the Milwaukee area for a few years, because every time they introduce you, they say, from Chicago, Illinois. And actually, that must have been where you were born because your dad, Bob Dotter, was there, and he raced out of Chicago, and therefore you got your start out of Chicago.
Yeah, that's where I spent all my early years and started racing, when I was 16 there, and did well in the late model stuff. I was fortunate enough. My dad was a truck mechanic. We had one race car, and me and him shared it. And I did well and won some features and stuff, and I was able to get a ride of my own driving for another gentleman and kind of moved that to where I ended up in the ASA series and gentleman that was around for a long time that built shocks for a lot of the big teams. He actually even helped Ty Majeski in that a little bit, Fred Rompler. He took me under his wing, and we went ASA racing. And in the ASA series out of the Chicago area there, I was able to meet some good people, and one of them was a gentleman from Wisconsin, Gene Matthew from up in upper Wisconsin there. And he went ahead and helped me get a motor program through Baker Engines, which elevated my program to where I started running a lot more competitively. And off of that is when I met Terry Baker and kind of moved from the Chicago area to Milwaukee there.
Yeah, West Dallas had a gas station. In fact, the gas station is still there in the corner of 76th and Lincoln. And you were one of a group that passed through Baker, and I'm sure there's more than this. I just came up with a couple of them myself. Ted Musgrave, Steve Holzhausen, Scott Hansen, Tony Raines, and yourself, and there was a couple other ones that went through there, mostly with Howie Leto, if I remember right.
Yes, sir. Started out there, Ed Evans, I believe, was the driver for Baker Enterprise, and they got their feet wet and got the team set up, and then Terry hired me and Howie roughly the same time. But at that time, Howie was still working his full-time job, so me and I brought up another guy with me from the Chicago area, JR, who ultimately married Terry Baker's daughter. We were the only two in the race shop or gas station, whichever you want to call it. There was 2 bays, so it wasn't a real big race shop, but we'd work on the car all day and kind of get everything done that Howie would tell us needed to be done, and he would show up in the evenings and do all the high-tech stuff and all the setup stuff, and ended up going from a middle-of-the-pack type ASA guy to we were actually contending for wins and, winning poles and stuff. So it was a real year that kind of shot me up the ladder a little bit.
Howie was living in Watertown at the time, so it was tough for him. He worked all day, and then he'd drive to West Dallas and help you guys get the car ready. And if I remember right, and somewhere in there, and PJ, you might even want to throw in here, Toby was on that team for a while. I don't know with which driver, probably Holzhausen.
Holzhausen.
Right?
Yep, yeah. It was Holzhausen.
Okay. So that was, now, was Holzhausen before you, Bobby, or no?
No, Evans was the only one that was before me, and then, I drove for Terry and then moved over to Gunderman the next year.
Which seemed to be a kind of a stepping stone kind of thing. I joked at the time, and I'm not sure Terry Baker was too thrilled when I'd say that, but Terry Baker turned out to be like the AAA for Jerry Gunderman. It was the last stop for several drivers before they went over to drive for Jerry Gunderman, and then from there, it seemed like many of them moved to North Carolina to further their careers along. So, and you are just one of those drivers, but I would assume that when you left to go to North Carolina, like many folks, including, like, for instance, Robbie Reiser, the plan was that you were going to make driving a career in NASCAR.
I was very fortunate that, for a number of years there, starting with Terry Baker there, that's what I was doing, working full-time in racing and driving full-time. So at Terry's place, when I got the ride there, I was bringing my motor program through Gene Matthew and stuff, and I was bringing a lot to the table along with, he gave me an opportunity that was unbelievable. And through that time, we got to be very good friends and spent a lot of time at Boring Bob's Bar and really got very close. Well, when the opportunity came up at Gunderman's, it was a very, very tough decision. Mark Martin called me personally and told me about it and said that he had strongly recommended me, and I needed to at least come talk to him. And so I was very much torn about the whole decision at the time. And one of the things that helped push me over the top was that Howie wanted to go full-time racing. He didn't want to work at the regular job and have to do that anymore. So Howie went to the meetings with me, and initially Howie was hired by Gunderman to come over there with me. And Mr. Baker, Terry, of course, got very, very upset about that I was leaving, especially taking Howie with me. So they went to war, and he basically hired Howie back over there. And that kind of set the whole Gunderman thing into a tailspin for me, because finding someone of his caliber to replace him was impossible. And I think I went through 4 crew chiefs that year, and it just obviously didn't turn out to be everything I'd hoped for. But I did get my first win in ASA, and it opened a few doors, and in the end, Jerry Gunderman turned out to be a phenomenal car owner too, and couldn't have treated me any better. And when I told him at the end of the year what my hopes were, that I was going to move down south and go Xfinity or Busch Series at that time racing, he totally encouraged me to do it and actually helped me make it all happen.
Yeah, Jerry was very much pro driver, a guy that looked like he had a career in front of him. Jerry not only didn't stand in the way of that, he did everything in his power to have people move on. Bobby Dotter is our guest. He lived and raced out of the Milwaukee area for several years. We're catching up with Bobby, but we're going to sneak away for a little break here. Bob, I'm glad you can hang around with us, because we're just tip of the iceberg here. We'll be back with Bobby Dotter right after these.
Cal O'Reilly with the game-winning goal. The Admirals are 4-0 in overtime again this year.
The Milwaukee Admirals will conclude a 3-3 weekend with another game against the Chicago Wolves Sunday afternoon. Pre-game coverage from Allstate Arena is at 2:30. Face-off is at 3 on the Big 920 and your iHeartRadio app.
As a growing manufacturing company, we needed security solutions. We chose Bonafide because of the services they offer, pricing, and trusted reputation. But it's their outstanding service and support that convinced us we made the right choice with Bonafide.
When businesses need security, they contact Bonafide Security Solutions. From locks and alarms to safes and surveillance, we do it all. We are Bonafide. We protect what you value. For your free security survey, call us today or visit BonafideSafe.com.
Miller Sales and Service is the Midwest's #1 Bravo trailer dealer for customer service and satisfaction. Serving the area since 1939, Miller's is located on the corner of Highway 57 and K in Random Lake. As the Midwest's #1 Bravo trailer dealer, Miller's has all kinds of Bravo trailers from 8 feet to 48 feet in stock. They also have a selection of B&B utility and dump trailers, reliable and Chilton open aluminum and steel trailers. With over 50 pre-owned low-mileage cars, trucks, and SUVs, Miller's has just the vehicle you are looking for. Miller's also carries a full line of Alumacraft boats and Manitou pontoon boats, complete with Evinrude outboards. Why not buy from racers who know what racers want and need? With Miller's Sales and Service on the corner of Highway 57 and K in Random Lake. Call Jerry, Tom, or Brad Miller today at 920-994-4358. That's Miller's Sales and Service, 920-994-4358.
Ryan Radke here from Sunday Night Football on Westwood One. Two of the hottest teams in the league clash in prime time when the Broncos host the Vikings. Russell Wilson and Denver have won 3 straight, including wins over the Chiefs and at the Bills. Now they face a Vikings team on a 5-game winning streak. Ryan Harris and I have the call from the Mile High City. Vikings and the Broncos on Sunday Night Football.
Coverage starts at 6:30 on Milwaukee's home for the NFL. 97.3 The Game.
Welcome back to the great off-season here on LTN on the Big 920. Glad you could join us. Bobby Dotter is our guest, and I was reminded during the break from our good friend Danny Eklund that Jimmy Johnson also drove for Terry Baker. Oh, by the way, and that was a nice name just to have gone through the doors at that shop. Kind of a low-profile race shop, I'll tell you that much. By the way, Terry Baker is alive and retired and living in Florida. And I was the last time I spoke with Mr. Baker, he called me after Dick Trickle died to see if I had some kind of inside knowledge as to what happened there. And I said, no, I sure don't. What everybody else heard is what I heard, too. So that's the last time I heard from Terry. So here we have Bobby Dotter, who is now been encouraged to find was supported by his car owner, Jerry Gunderman, when he told him that he wanted to go down to NASCAR country and find a ride in NASCAR. That must have been the good old days, Bobby, when you could just go down there and say, I'm available to drive your car.
Well, yes and no. That may have been the way it was, but unfortunately for me, it didn't go that way. I actually had my own car and engine and stuff, and truck and trailer. When I say truck, I mean like a small van and an open trailer, and got a shop. And when I say shop, I mean one bay and a garage from a friend that my dad had from Chicago. And that's where I raced out of that year. And for most of the summer, my living quarters were, he had a pickup truck with a camper shell on the back of it, and I lived in that out by the shop. So, and I was the only full-time person that I had on the race car down there. So I went racing, and a lot of my Wisconsin guys and Illinois guys that had helped me through the years would meet me at the racetrack to run my races. And I think I was able to run maybe 12 to 15 races that year before I totally ran out of money. And started out pretty rough, struggling a little bit, but then got a kind of a little bit better grasp on it and was able to go to like Louisville, Kentucky and sit on the pole. Went to Indianapolis Raceway Park, ran top 10, and thought I had started showing some stuff, so I tried to get some of them rides you're talking about where here I am with my helmet, showed you guys I can drive these cars a little bit, and just didn't pan out at that moment. I was very, very close to getting a 63 ride, which turned out to be Chuck Bound, and he got Nescafe then, but Chuck brought the connection for Nescafe, and he ended up getting that ride over me at the time. So I was pretty close to packing up my whole thing. And coming back to Wisconsin, I'd been driving a ASA car some in the ASA series with Dairy Queen on it, the Schubert family. It was Ed Schubert and his brothers. And we were having some success, not winning races or nothing, and I was thinking, well, I tried, I didn't make it. It's time to move back and just go ASA racing again. And right about that time, I got a call from a guy I knew that built trailers, and he had sold a trailer to a team in Miami, Florida, and they were running the All-Pro Series, struggling, not having much luck. And he says, the owner of the team's looking for a new driver. I suggested you because down the road here, he's thinking he wants to be in the Busch Series as a car owner. So this is right around Thanksgiving, all this was going on. So I flew down to Florida. Of course, he took care of flying me down there. Met with him, went to the shop again. It was just like a strip mall, I'm going to say, in a area that wasn't very nice. No air conditioning in Miami.
Oh, God.
And nobody hardly spoke English. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, what is this? So we get talking and stuff. And he says, we go run All-Pro. And, again, mind you, they were like a back marker runner. And they didn't really have nothing in the shop to work on cars. When their cars would get tore up, they would send them from Miami all the way to North Carolina and have Robert Hemke work on them. So we kind of talked about everything, and I said, we can do a lot of this stuff here. Went through the whole 9 yards. And so we get to the end of the conversation, and in my head, I'm thinking about a number that, this is going to be, it needs to be worthwhile for me to do this. So we're talking, and he says, well, what's it going to take? And I said, I don't know. You have a number? And he wrote a number on the paper, and I about fell out of the booth, and I'm like, you're going to pay me that? And he's like, well, if we can do this, I'm expecting you to move here and do this and that. So we did it, and it turned out to be just an unbelievable year. The next year we won, 5-6 races in All-Pro. We set a bunch of poles. Most of the year we contended for the championship till me and Jody Ridley decided we were going to get in a crash fest, and every race for about 3 or 4 races we wrecked each other. So ended up, the two of us were wrecking each other, and we're the fastest 2 cars there, and Joe Nemechek's being buddies to both of us. And he ends up just keep running, and he finishes 3rd, 4th, whatever, and he wins the championship. So, but at the end of that year, we had bought some Busch cars, and we had went to a few Busch races that year, and we actually didn't qualify for any of them. So it was like, I'm going to say September, and the car owner had promised me when we made the deal, if you win a race like you're telling me you're going to, I'll have air conditioning put in the shop. Well, I won like the third race of the year. So no air conditioning. But here, we're going in a road, and we'd go on the road sometimes because All-Pro used to run in Texas, all over the place. We'd leave for sometimes 3 or 4 weeks at a time. So get to September, and all of a sudden here comes some air conditioning guys in the shop. And I'm like, what are you guys doing here? And they're like, well, we're going to measure it up for putting air conditioning in. So I called the car owner up, and I said, why are we putting air conditioning in if we're going Xfinity racing, Busch racing next year? And he's like, well, we really haven't made any of those, and we're winning all these races in All-Pro. Why don't we just go ahead and do another year of All-Pro racing?
Oh, boy.
And I'm like, I don't think I can stay here another year. This isn't what I want to do long term. It's great, you're great, he says, well, we got one more race on our schedule to go to Martinsville. He says, let's see what happens there, and then we'll make a decision. We'll just put this on hold for right now. So Martinsville's
not what you wanted to hear.
No. You got the pressure, you know exactly what's got to happen if you got any hope to do this. So we go to Martinsville, and just everything fell into place. There's like 50 cars there, and only 30 some make it. We ended up making the race. Just had a phenomenal day. Finished 10th, in the race. And this is before, cell phones and all the good stuff we got now. So as quick as I could after that race, I get to a cell phone, and I call him up. He's down in Miami still. And I said, hey, it's Bobby. And he says, let me guess. You're still wanting to move down there now. And I said, well, did we do good enough? And he said, yeah, you did good enough. We'll go ahead and we'll try this next year. We'll move to Xfinity. That's how that chapter of the life went in 1989.
From a non-air conditioned shop to Charlotte, and after you left, though, it was nice and cool in there.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Unbelievable. All right. So then, I tell you what, we're at the next point where you're going to talk about how things have gone in NASCAR, and you're a team owner and all that sort of thing. And you bring up some developmental guys, and your career has continued into the sport of NASCAR, which we'll talk to Bobby about after we take a break and be back right after these.
Touchdown, Romeo Dobbs! Sunday, the Packers return to Lambeau, playing host to the LA Chargers. Doug Russell is live with Packers Game Day at 8 a.m. Kickoff at noon on Milwaukee's home for the Packers. 97.3 The Game.
Hey, Matthew, give me a hand with this tree.
Dad, let's get a real tree this year.
Hey, leave that fake tree in the box under the basement steps this year. Get a real tree from PMF Landscape on River Road in West Bend. Any kind of real tree imaginable, up to 18 feet. A huge assortment of Christmas decorations, including wreaths in 3 sizes, cemetery wreaths, festive global hanging ornaments, bows, garland roping, and more. Stop in 7 days a week during the holiday season, have refreshments, and check everything out. How about a PMF gift certificate? The perfect gift. PMF Landscape Supply, 5470 South River Road in West Bend. Call them 262-338-8800.
Dad, our tree from PMF Landscape looks great.
As a growing manufacturing company, we needed security solutions. We chose Bonafide because of the services they offer, pricing, and trusted reputation. But it's their outstanding service and support that convinced us we made the right choice with Bonafide.
When businesses need security, they contact Bonafide Security Solutions. From locks and alarms to safes and surveillance, we do it all. We are Bonafide. We protect what you value. For your free security survey, call us today or visit bonafidesafe.com.
The Dan Patrick Show.
Dan Patrick.
It feels like C.J. Stroud, they're still learning, trying to figure him out. They figure out every quarterback at some point.
Just give me the ball and I'm going to make a play. Those kind of things, 8 weeks into the future, it's like, what happened? I thought you just give me the ball and make me play. Like, oh, what happened? I thought we just had to give you the ball and then you would make a play.
The Dan Patrick Show.
Dan and the Danettes and you.
Weekday mornings, 8 to 11 on the Big 920 and your iHeartRadio app.
We're talking with former cheesehead Bobby Dotter, who has made a career for himself in NASCAR racing, and may not have been as a cup driver, but he's been a successful businessman within the sport of NASCAR for many years, and much of it has to do with driver development these days, right, Bobby?
Yeah, it's turned into that. We tried for a number of years there myself as a driver, and was fortunate to bring DeWalt into the series, and went from being a 15th to 20th place guy to being a top 10. And after 2 real successful years with them, I thought we were really going to take off. They were talking about a 2-year deal with me being in Cup the second year, and it looked like the sky was really coming together here for me. And my car owner at the time, who was a gentleman from Miami, he had invested millions of dollars in me to get to that point. Well, unknowns to me, he had gotten himself in some financial trouble, and when DeWalt did the background check on him, they decided that it wasn't the team they really wanted to be with for moving, to that next level. So they came to me and talked to me about moving with them to other teams, and I was reluctant because this gentleman had spent so much time and money on me and stuff. And the end of the story is that I did eventually entertain some other things with him, but none of it worked out. And Hermie Sadler came in there, and he had his own sponsors, own money, own car dealerships, and they ended up going with him. And that kind of ended my driving career somewhat. I hung in there one more year with a smaller sponsor, but we struggled, and I ended up having to shut the team down. Well, when my car owner from Miami found out that we were losing the DeWalt deal, and it turned out he was in financial trouble unknown to me, he went ahead and shut the team down. And he said, you've driven for me now for 7 years, and there was supposed to be that huge number for driving. Well, we just didn't have it ever, so I never got paid. But I kept doing it because it was doing what I wanted and what I loved. Well, he says, at this point, I just want to get out of this sport. I want to be done with it. I will give you the team. You can have everything. But we had a brand new Featherlight trailer, which was $250,000 at the time. He says, but somehow you got to find a way to get financing and take the trailer off my books. I've got to get it off my books. So when you talk about me being a team owner, that's the only reason that ever happened was because the gentleman in Florida, Mr. Rising, ended up giving me the whole team at that time, and I did find the financing for the trailer and went ahead and became a team owner. And through the years, like you say, being at the level where we're at in the series, we get a lot of driver development because we know we're not winning races regularly. We're not up front because we just don't have that kind of funding. And more often than not, a lot of the drivers that come to us are family backed. So, they don't bring multi-million-dollar deals. They bring enough to just go racing with. And we've been trying to climb up the ladder. But on that note, I will say that, Ross Chastain got his start with me. He lived right in our race shop. We got a little apartment there, and he's never forgot about us either. He's the one that sent some of the drivers my way in the last year or two here. And Ross and his family are just unbelievable people.
And you had, a couple of years ago, you had Cole Custer in your car. You've had Haley Deegan in your car. Those were deals when you had a situation with Stuart Haas, but that's not going forward anymore, correct?
No, the deal with Stuart Haas, we've been involved with them for about 5 years now. We fly on their plane. I rent seats from them, and they were doing my pit crews for like 3 and 4 years. Well, then they said, well, let's step up, and why don't we get some cars, and we'll do an alliance, which you pay for the alliance just for the information and stuff, basically. So the driver I had at that time, Joe Graff Jr., they wanted to do it, and they had the funding to do it, so we went ahead and got in full bore with them last year, and it was a great experience. We got to see how they do things a little bit, and we did get a win there and got to work with some great drivers. But in the end, still, they can't do stuff for you just because you're a nice guy or whatever. And when you want an alliance like that, you're talking about $1 million just for information. So I'm not in that category anymore. And we still do fly with them, and we still do some stuff with them, and they treat me unbelievable. But I don't have the ability to get cars or get setup information or get my bodies tricked out the way they do them. Different things that we had at our fingertips last year.
Well, it was interesting in Phoenix. There was a situation you had with your car that J.J. Ailey was driving, that the fans were interacting with that car. You want to give us a little bit insight on how that whole deal went together? Because it's a really interesting story.
Well, we had a PR guy that had done a bunch of stuff for us with David Starr, and he brought me the idea saying that he had a company, and they do stuff in football kind of in where you do different voting on this and that for football, and they wanted to look at getting into NASCAR, and was it something I was interested in, and the timing and everything about it was right, and I got to know the people that are, the big wigs with the company, and we were able to put it all together, and it was an excellent experience. The people that were on the box, they had actually contest winners, so to speak, that were on the box with them, and they were the ones that were monitoring the votes and stuff, and they'd go to the crew chief and say, 70% thought we should do this, or 60% thought you should do this. So it was an interesting thing, and, we had a great race going. JJ had moved into the top 20 and was looking like he was going to give us exactly what we needed to bump up into the top 30 in points, which was big. And then another car got into him in the rear end coming off the corner and spun him into the inside wall, and it ended our day.
Well, Bobby, listen, we don't talk to you enough. It was really great being able to touch base with you a little bit and, see what goes on into the inner workings of a deal like yours, and a career really in racing that has taken you all the way to being a car owner in NASCAR. It's got to probably not have been exactly like you would have drawn it up when you started in this business, but the game of life leads you in different directions, and it's been a pretty cool career, I have to say.
It has been, and I can't say enough about that. A lot of it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't went through the Wisconsin connection there. Jerry Gunderman, Terry Baker. I met my fiance of 35 years there. She stuck with me through everything. Jan Kierzak, she's went racing with me ever since then. Just the people there, like I said, going to BB Rubbles, going to Boring Bob's. It was a time in my life that was so much fun, and yet it made the connections I needed to get a chance down south. And without that Wisconsin connection, it would have never happened.
Well, thanks for taking a little time and joining us. And if you don't mind, we're going to keep tabs on you as the season goes on, perhaps have you on during the season.
Okay, and a little teaser for you that in my driver pool for next year, I got 3 drivers from Wisconsin that I'm talking to. So don't know that anything will come of any of it, but I'm talking to 3 drivers from there. And can't
love it.
say goodbye without saying, too, through the years, Eddie Kluka helped me a lot, and both of his sons worked for me. So, again, that Wisconsin connection.
All right. Bobby Daughter. Thanks, man. Love you, and we'll talk to you down the line. We'll be back after these.
Cal O'Reilly with the game-winning goal. The Admirals are 4-0 in overtime this year. The Milwaukee Admirals will conclude a 3-3 weekend with another game against the Chicago Wolves Sunday afternoon. Pre-game coverage from Allstate Arena is at 2:30. Face-off is at 3 on the Big 920 and your iHeartRadio app.
Miller Sales and Service is the Midwest's #1 Bravo trailer dealer for customer service and satisfaction. Serving the area since 1939, Miller's is located on the corner of Highway 57 and K in Random Lake. As the Midwest's #1 Bravo trailer dealer, Miller's has all kinds of Bravo trailers from 8 feet to 48 feet in stock. They also have a selection of B&B utility and dump trailers, reliable and Chilton open aluminum and steel trailers. With over 50 pre-owned low-mileage cars, trucks, and SUVs, Miller's has just the vehicle you are looking for. Miller's also carries a full line of Alumacraft boats and Manitou pontoon boats, complete with Evinrude outboards. Why not buy from racers who know what racers want and need? With Miller's Sales and Service on the corner of Highway 57 and K in Random Lake. Call Jerry, Tom, or Brad Miller today at 920-994-4358. That's Miller's Sales and Service, 920-994-4358.
Hey, Matthew, give me a hand with this tree.
Dad, let's get a real tree this year.
Hey, leave that fake tree in the box under the basement steps this year. Get a real tree from PMF Landscape on River Road in West Bend. Any kind of real tree imaginable, up to 18 feet. A huge assortment of Christmas decorations, including wreaths in 3 sizes, cemetery wreaths, festive global hanging ornaments, bows, garland roping, and more. Stop in 7 days a week during the holiday season, have refreshments, and check everything out. How about a PMF gift certificate? The perfect gift. PMF Landscape Supply, 5470 South River Road in West Bend. Call them, 262-338-8800.
Dad, our tree from PMF Landscape looks great.
This is 2 Pros and a Cup of Joe.
When you're PJ Walker and you throw that ball and it deflects off Jamal Adams' head and goes up into the air, what is that feeling like as a quarterback?
As a quarterback, you have already written off the play as an interception.
2 Pros, LeVar Arrington, Brady Quinn, and a Cup of Joe, Jonas Knox.
Weekday mornings 5 to 8 on the Big 920 and your iHeartRadio app.
And now the LTN Hour presents Dirt on the Dirt with Brian Schmidt.
Dirt season continues to wind down here. The USAC Midgets are taking center stage the next 2 weeks as they make their run up to the Big Turkey Night Grand Prix, which will be next weekend in California. They race Tuesday night in Bakersfield for the USAC National Midgets. Logan Seavey picked up the win there. Friday night, they were in Placerville, California for night number 1 of the Hangtown 100, and Kyle Larson hopped into a midget. I don't know when the last time was he was in a midget. It's been probably over a year because he doesn't do the Chili Bowl anymore, but knocked the rust right off and went on and won the feature event. The Saturday night portion of the Hangtown 100 was rained out, so that will be today, and you can watch that on Flow as well. Friday night also in Casa Grande, Arizona, the Central Arizona Raceway. Todd, you were at this race where Tim Ward picked up the modified feature win, correct?
Yeah, Tim Ward, formerly of Iowa and Wisconsin. He's moved around a little bit. Yeah, he was pretty awesome on Friday night.
And the IMSA Stock Cars, Bo Partain was your winner. Down in Milton, Florida, the Southern Raceway, the Southern All-Stars Super Late Model Series, Dalton Cook was your winner. Last night, Casa Grande, night number 2 of that 3-day event they had there. In the modifieds, Luke Silber was your winner. The IMSA Stock Cars went to Cole Sarneski, who's from right up here in Francis Creek, Wisconsin area. He made the tow down there, made it worth his while picking up a win.
Got to meet those guys. Pretty cool.
Oh, cool, yeah.
They're buddies of Brad Miller, by the way. That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, no, everybody's buddies with Brad Miller. And in the IMCA Sport Mods, Taylor Kuhl, who now lives in Iowa, towed all the way out to Arizona and made it worth her while picking up the Sport Mod win last night.
They're racing there again today. IMCA.tv costs too much. Don't bother.
Yeah, this is the main event here today, this afternoon. Barberville, Florida, Volusia Speedway Park, the 10th annual Emil and Dale Reutemann Memorial for the UMP Modifieds. Nick Hoffman picked up the win, and the 604 crate late models went to Tyler Clem. Night number 2 in Milton, Florida at the Southern Raceway for the Southern All-Stars late models, 5,000 to win. Joseph Joyner was your winner. Springfield, Missouri last night, the Turkey Bowl 17. $5,075 to win in the super late models. Tyler Stevens was your winner. The USRA Modifieds, Tom Berry Jr. Del Mar, Delaware, the Delaware State Championship, $7,000 to win for the super late models. Jamie Latham was your winner. Rick Eckert finished second. In the big block modifieds, it was Anthony Parego. In Norman Park, Georgia, the Needmore Speedway, the Crate Racing USA Early Bird 50 for the 604 crates, $10,000 to win. Cody Overton, the brother of Brandon Overton, picked up the win there. And finally, the bigger paying super late model race of the weekend, when it's only $10,000, that's kind of low considering what the money they're running for lately, was in Wheel, Tennessee, the Duck River Raceway Park, the Hunt the Front super late model series, the Gobbler, $10,000 to win, and Tanner English from the World of Outlaws Case Construction late model series picked up the feature win there. And that is everything for this week.
On the asphalt side of things, the Governor's Cup was run last Sunday at New Smyrna Speedway. Stephen Nassy was the winner in that Anthony Campy prepared car. Last night, the South Carolina 400 at the Florence Motor Speedway. Late model stock car division, they ran a 250-lap feature. Cade Brown was the winner. Carson Quapple was up there competing for the win, ended up finishing third. Josh Berry was fourth. Dale Earnhardt, eighth. And that is all we have for the asphalt results.
We got a little update, and thanks to Scott Hansen, who tells us that Terry Baker has. It sounds like a snowbird deal to me. The car owner we talked about earlier that lives in Florida now. He says he's back living in New Berlin. So I have a feeling he's a snowbird, but I don't. I know that for sure. But either way. That was really cool having Bobby Dotter on talking about his career, and it's pretty neat. There are some other things going on in the world of NASCAR. Ken Squire passed away this week. He was a pioneer in the world of broadcasting. I didn't realize it till our esteemed engineer, Matt Losey, brought it to my attention that Ken Squire was one of the co-founders of the Motor Racing Network. He did own WDEV up in Vermont, and plus Dan, I guess he owned a racetrack in Vermont also. Right?
Thunder Road, I think it was the speedway in Vermont that was his track, and really instrumental in bringing the TV coverage to NASCAR. I mean, he's the one that convinced CBS pretty much to go all in and do the Daytona 500 and 79 and other events. Before, we used to always have to listen to watch segments on ABC's Wide World of Sports. Remember, we start of the race and we go to Acapulco cliff diving or something.
Yep. That's exactly right. Yeah, that was the first, the one that really brought NASCAR to the forefront on television. Actually, he's behind the whole thing. Passed away at age 88 this week. Found out just a couple days before that he'd gone into hospice. So our best to the Squire family. Josh Williams, you know the name, that crazy-ass driver that got out and whipped off the tower and then caused a caution and made... That was the most famous thing the guy ever did in a race car. Well, he got himself a full-time ride in the Colleague Xfinity car, the number 11 car.
He was running last night, too, in that South Carolina 400.
He's a short tracker.
That South Carolina 400, that South Carolina 400 minutes, it took a long time to complete, didn't it?
No kidding. That was a total crap show at times. Yeah.
I like how you cleaned that up for radio. That was beautiful.
Alloy Employer Services is the money that he's bringing to the Colleague, because that'll be the next question. How does he get a Colleague ride? Well, he's got a sponsor that's willing to foot the bill for a full season in that car, and that is Alloy Employer Services.
As PJ intimated a week ago, we could look for an announcement out of ThorSport this week. Haley Deegan's replacement was named, to no surprise whatsoever. Jake Garcia, young driver. He has driven at Slinger a couple of times. I know that. He's been around, and he's got some a very awesome upside. He's still a young guy. I think he's 16, 17 years old. and he will be a Thor Sport truck driver. I don't know if they're going to keep number 13 or not, but we'll look for that name in the Truck Series this coming year. John Hunter Nemechek, of course, coming to the Cup Series next year in the number 42 car. They named their crew chief. Ben Bayshore is going to be the guy there. You think you remember the name from somewhere? He was with Kyle Busch. Dan, I guess it was in 2021, right?
Yeah, he's been with Gibbs for a while. He was the crew chief on the 20 car on the Xfinity side for Hunter Nemechek at Gibbs, and just moving with him to the Cup side.
All right. We'll sneak away for a break, and we'll be right back.
Sunday, the Packers return to Lambeau, playing host to the LA Chargers. Doug Russell is live with Packers Game Day at 8 a.m. Kickoff at noon on Milwaukee's home for the Packers. 97.3 The Game.
From racing engines to street engines, long blocks to turnkey packages, or complete custom engines, just ask and Wagner Automotive can fill your needs. All backed by many years of racing experience. These years of experience have provided reliability and performance that customers need to win races. Wagner's has been building championship-winning engines for top teams from NASCAR to short tracks in your backyard. This expertise has carried over to street engines they supply to top custom car builders. The Wagner Company, in the heart of Wisconsin, is outfitted with the state-of-the-art machinery necessary to design, manufacture, build, and test custom engines and their accessory parts. Dyno services are independently available for anyone needed to test their engine. Wagner's Company can also provide you or your company with production CNC machining or welding services. All your questions and requests are handled personally by Casey Wagner. Just give us a call at 920-394-3557 or visit our website at wagnerautomotive.com.
Miller Sales and Service is the Midwest's #1 Bravo trailer dealer for customer service and satisfaction. Serving the area since 1939, Miller's is located on the corner of Highway 57 and K in Random Lake. As the Midwest's #1 Bravo trailer dealer, Miller's has all kinds of Bravo trailers from 8 feet to 48 feet in stock. They also have a selection of B&B utility and dump trailers, reliable and Chilton open aluminum and steel trailers. With over 50 pre-owned low-mileage cars, trucks, and SUVs, Miller's has just the vehicle you are looking for. Miller's also carries a full line of Alumacraft boats and Manitou pontoon boats, complete with Evinrude outboards. Why not buy from racers who know what racers want and need? With Miller's Sales and Service on the corner of Highway 57 and K in Random Lake. Call Jerry, Tom, or Brad Miller today at 920-994-4358. That's Miller's Sales and Service, 920-994-4358.
Check this out.
This is The Herd.
You're excited. I'm excited.
With Colin Cowherd.
Patriots South, the Houston Texans. Patriots Detroit. Patriots Miami. That didn't work. And Patriots West in the desert. The Raiders didn't work. Anybody think Tom Brady was the reason it worked? Tom Brady was the rare superstar. He didn't get enough.
This is The Herd.
Weekdays 3 to 6 on the Big 920 in your iHeartRadio app.
A reminder that the LTN podcast is available on iHeart, iTunes, and all major platforms. Not only ours, but Racing Nuggets, which is PJ's podcast, is available. And I guess you had a pretty good last one, huh?
We did. Dan Plan and I got to talk with Kenny Schrader, and his wife Ann actually got involved on it too. So if you'd like to listen to that, you can download it anywhere you get your podcasts, or you could even watch it on YouTube.
Ah, your own channel. Your next couple of weeks are going to be pretty darned exciting, aren't they, Peach?
They are. We're leaving on Wednesday to head down to Sarasota for the big Bill Bigley Senior Memorial. That's $30,000 to win. Super late model race. Should be interesting. Tobe went through the car. There are no hollow bolts on it, so that's going to be exciting.
Just to be different.
So it's all good to go, but he's over at the shop right now, petting on it, getting it all set to go. And then he's also preparing another car for the Snowball Derby, which is going to be the following weekend in Pensacola.
Tow both cars?
Yeah, we're taking 2 down there, so hopefully we get through unscathed with both races.
Dan, do we know drivers from our neck of the woods that are going to be competing in Florida at either one of those events?
It's
Yeah.
For sure, yeah. I mean, other than Ty Majeski, you have Derek Krause, Johnny Sauter, Luke Fenhouse, Paulie Schaefer, Jeff Storm, or some of them. How many of them will carry on to the snowball? I guess we'll see. I think a lot depends on what happens on Saturday night. The car survives to go to the next one.
The big
Exactly.
It's a pretty decent purse, right?
It is $30,000 to win, and this year though they're having it. It's the former DeSoto Speedway. It's in that Sarasota, Bradenton area. Last year it was at that 417 track, but that has since shut down. So that's where it's going to be this year, and I'm excited to go there for the first time. It's a track that's run by that Cletus McFarland guy, pretty big on YouTube. Cletus, he's kind of a crazy guy, but he's a hell of a promoter, and it should be a really great show. They've got what do they call that? The Vors
Compact Series.
Compact Series.
Yeah, they're going to be running there too, so that ought to be interesting.
And, I hate hearing that about tracks that have shut down, and it's happening more and more, Rockford and that one. And, you're just not hearing about too many tracks being built and starting up and starting from scratch and all that sort of thing. It seems like there's more going the other direction, isn't it?
Well, I think we need to have people quit bitching and moaning about tracks. You keep complaining about things, and you don't know what you got till it's gone.
Isn't that really the key there? Yeah, that's part of the game. Social media, it's a kind of a double-edged sword. It'll do good things for you, and it'll put real bad taste in some people's mouths. And speaking of social media, that's how Chase Elliott elected to tell his fandom, and that's a considerable fandom, I don't mind telling you, that he had shoulder surgery this week. Did we know this was coming? Dan, I don't even know that he talked about this in advance. Did he?
I just got out of the blue. I mean, he had his problem with breaking his leg earlier in the year, but
right.
The shoulder thing was something new.
And he said, "Wow, I thought I'd get it done in the off season this time." Yeah, a little something different there, right? There are a couple of rumored deals that supposedly are done. Ty Dillon, the heavy rumor is he is going to the number 16 car, which probably means that Colleague and Childress have some sort of working relationship. Am I guessing that correctly?
Yeah, they had an alliance, so they had like a technical alliance type thing.
All right, so that means I'll fix you up with some stuff, but you got to put my grandson in the car. And also, it's been common knowledge for some time now that Noah Gregson is going to be heading to the 10 car to replace Almirola. But, why do we go so long without announcing? It must have to do with a sponsor search. I think that he's in it no matter what. But am I guessing right? Is he in that car no matter what?
Everybody says that, and that's usually what happens. There's usually so many things you got to put in order before we can make an announcement sponsor-wise and everything else that it takes so long to get these things done.
No different than the Kyle Busch thing, although that was a lot more moving parts on that one. But yes, what Dan said is absolutely true. There's so many other things that need to be put in place before they officially announce.
The Winston Cup Museum, which I didn't even realize was a thing. It's not to be confused with the NASCAR Hall of Fame. This is a different thing. It's in the Charlotte area. They've been operating ever since Winston pulled out of the series and before they pulled out. But it's going to close down. And I think it had to do with my theory that there's way too many lawyers in this world. Am I right?
Probably. I think Winston didn't like their likeness used on some of the displays and thought they should have a part of that and kind of just priced them out of it.
It's the parent company for Winston, which I forget what it was. They must have been sold, right?
R.J. Reynolds.
R.J. Reynolds, yep.
And they were into a lot. I think they sold. Anyway, the lawyers get involved, and there it is. The world goes to hell in a handbasket. Thanks so much for tuning in, and our thanks to our great friend Bobby Dotter for we just don't keep in touch with Bobby enough, and it was really good to do the program today. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Glad you're here for the great off season, and for all of us involved with the program, we want you to remember that real race cars have doors, even if they do climb in through the windows. LTN is produced and directed by dangerous Dan Margetta. Our engineer is Matt Losi, who wants to remind everyone to hang on for the Hangover Show coming up straight ahead for all of us. See you next week, everybody.
This program has come to you live from multiple locations via Skype. Any and all comments expressed on this show do not necessarily express the opinions of this station, its employees, or advertisers. Your comments are always welcome at mail@ltnradionetwork.com. Find us at facebook.com/LTN Radio Network. And thank you for your support since 1985. Tune in again next Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time for the LTN Hour on the LTN Radio Network.